The Mark Thompson Show.
Yes, happy holidays from all of us here. Fridays, we like to bring this guy in. He's forgotten more about politics than most of us will ever know. He's Michael Shure, everyone.
So get me up to speed here, because I do keep in touch with our friend Jim Avila, and Jim is I know have made an announcement, I believe, here on the show. Did he not?
Yes, he made the announcement. We actually had him on twice after the announcement, and it was with a bittersweet feeling that we said goodbye to Jim Avila last week. He is now the lead investigative journalist and leading up the investigative unit at Channel 10. I think it's ABC 10 in San Diego.
Wow.
Yeah. And
yes, I know he is, and I wasn't certain if that meant that he was no longer on the Mark Thompson show.
Yeah, no, he can't do it because, at least for now, because he just didn't want to go to battle over that.
Yeah, I get it. Which I guess it's an awkward thing for you, but I mean, I think that my compensation should go up.
I will. Everything we were giving him will go to you.
Okay, well, that's all I really wanted. I mean, I would even take a little less than that.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's the kind of person you are. Spencer says, please tell me about the debate, Michael. Michael, before you talk about the debate, Albert, run a little bit of the debate between DeSantis and Gavin Newsom from last night's little Fox Thunderdome thing that they put together. Go ahead.
Joe Biden is sitting on his hands. He refuses to take care of the border. He refuses to hold the drug cartels accountable. This is the vision of Biden, Harris, Newsom.
I support border security. I think the asylum system is broken. I believe that we need.
I understand that.
I'm the only guy here that's a border state governor. You're trolling folks and trying to find migrants to play political games, to try to get some news and attention so you can out-Trump Trump. And by the way, how's that going for you, Ron? You're down 41 points in your own home state.
Everybody?
Biden administration, the last 3 years, it's been a master.
Joe Biden paying you tonight?
3.9%.
I thought this was state versus state.
No, but it's about the United States of America. I thought this guy was running for president of the United States.
You are too. You just won't admit it.
Running for a third.
You just won't admit it. You will not admit it.
Is Joe Biden experiencing this cognitive decline? Is it a danger to the country? Do you find when he speaks, what is your reaction to it?
Yes, he's in decline. Yes, it's a danger to the country. He has no business running for president. And, Gavin Newsom agrees with that. He won't say that. That's why he's running his shadow campaign.
We'll take Joe Biden at 100 versus Ron DeSantis any day of the week at any age. You had quarantines. You had quarantines. You had checkpoints all over the state of Florida. By the way, I didn't say that. Donald Trump laid you out on this, dead to right. You did that.
True.
You followed science. You followed Fauci, Ron DeSantis.
That's not
He followed science. He followed.
You had more kids locked out of school for a longer period of time in California than anywhere else in the country. It was the working class kids. It was the middle income kids. His kids were in private school. They were in class in person.
Slow down. I want everyone to be heard. If I can ask you, I really do want this to breathe. I want this debate to breathe. I want it to organically develop. To do that, I need both your cooperation. I don't want to be a hall monitor. It's not my style, all right?
This is a book that's in some of the schools in California. Florida, this is not consistent with our standards, called Gender Queer. Some of it's blacked out. You would not probably be able to put this on air. This is pornography. It's cartoons. It's aimed at children, and it's wrong. So this should not be in schools.
Those books, do you believe that's appropriate for school districts to teach kids? Yes or no?
Come on, those aren't. It's not part of the curriculum. They're not teaching.
Those are those are books that were in school.
Hold on. The bottom line is you are on a book banning binge. Your state, 1,406 books, 3,362 in this country.
You didn't answer.
Florida's
what about those books?
That's not. We don't provide for K through third grade education, that kind of curriculum. It's just made up. These guys make it up. It's part of this cultural purge.
Should it be?
Just a
what grade would it be acceptable?
What I find offensive, Sean and Ron, what I find offensive is a very significant number of these books happen to be LGBTQ books.
Joe Biden is in the pocket of the teachers union, and so is Kamala Harris. That's why they fought school openings when he came in there. When they had that in there.
It's Kamala
Biden came into office and he brought in the teacher union to be able to. This is a map of San Francisco. There's a lot of plots on that. You may be asking, what is that plotting? Well, this is an app where they plot the human feces that are found on the streets of San Francisco.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry the sound is low, so hopefully I laid out so you could turn it up a little bit, those listening. But now we'll speak at the level of, that's just what we wanted to give you a feel for. It was the food fight that went on. You know, DeSantis came with, you know, more props than Carrot Top. It was crazy. He just kept pulling stuff out and trying to show various things.
Which, by the way, was against the rules, I believe, that you weren't allowed.
Yeah, you're not supposed to bring any props, but, you know, he did. And you know, I'll just say this and then I'll shut up and let Michael Shure speak. But the reality is that Newsom is really debating two people there, right? He's debating Hannity and he's debating DeSantis. What were your thoughts on it? And just, you know, I don't know that it matters, but these two guys are politically relevant, aren't they?
Well, they both are politically relevant because they're governors of two very important political states, and you know, not that any state is less important than the other, but these are two, you know, population centers, and we don't need to go into how big both states are, but it's important in that regard. It's also, I mean, you pointed out that it did feel a bit like a 2-on-1 there, so I guess Newsom gets kudos for stepping into that and to go do it. I think that, you know, what you see, what Gavin Newsom needs to do, politically speaking, for his current and future aspirations, whatever they may be, is to prove that he is substantive. And I think the knock against him is perception, is that he's this tall, good-looking guy, and in essence, that he's cursed with good looks, because underneath that is a lot of substance. He knows the issues pretty well. And I think that the more he does these things to get himself out in front of people, whether you like him or not, whether you agree with him or not, he has a broad knowledge base and a solid one about the issues that are most important right now. And going into this 2-on-1, I think it was important because it showed that he's not really afraid to do something like this. The substance of it, I mean, it became a shouting match. We saw a lot of it there. It was a he said, she said type of environment, and you're not going to get anywhere in those sorts of conversations. But the fact that it happened and he was there is important. And look, any airtime for Ron DeSantis as a candidate who's trailing so badly and losing steam in a race that he never really had steam in is good for DeSantis, and this is also good for Newsom to be out front.
Kim, sorry.
You know what bothered me, Michael, about the way the questions were asked and kind of the ganging up of Hannity and DeSantis on Newsom all night long was each question was presented with some type of a graph or a, you know, statistics or something, and it's Fox. So how does anyone know that whatever they're presenting is based in reality or is the actual numbers or the truth? And then because the way the question is presented that way, well, here's the percentage of Californians that are homeless. Then Newsom has to start from a place that information is correct, and it may not have been.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Kim. I think look, going in, you knew what the playing field was if you were Gavin Newsom. And I think that's just part of the deal there. And I think you set the bar low, you respond, you show what you know, which is the primary reason for him being in this, and to defend his record. And the best way to defend your record is when your record is attacked, and it was every 37 seconds while he was there, and it gave him the opportunity to do that. So yeah, it was not fair. You don't know where the numbers come from, but I do think that you can't criticize that because you knew that ahead of time. There were no surprises here, and Gavin Newsom knew what he was stepping into. And to an extent, Ron DeSantis needed this as well. He needed to show and defend his record in Florida that has come under attack, not just from Democrats, but from some Republicans in the debates that he's attended in the presidential race on that side, in the primary debates there. So I guess everybody knew what they were getting into.
The net effect, I suppose, is negligible. I mean, I don't know. You know, first it was up against a football game, I think. So, you know, the NFL has a history of pretty much obliterating anything else that's up against it from a rating standpoint. But most of these things now in the modern age exist in the way that we just visited it, in a mashup or in a story that you see or in some viral moment. So. But I mean, isn't that the case, though? It's essentially, it doesn't move the meter in any appreciable way.
I mean, look, Ron DeSantis did this because he needs to be doing things like this. And he was out there he's in a desperate situation, both as a governor and as a presidential candidate. It's not going to change anything. And Gavin Newsom is not a candidate for president right now. And until he is, these sort of things don't matter that much, but they matter to the groundwork, the base, the foundation of whatever it would be should he run for president.
Michael Shure, the tossing of George Santos today, the voting in the House to get rid of him. I was saying before this all went down that, in this thin majority that the GOP has in the House, getting rid of one vote is not nothing. I wonder if you can.
It's not nothing, which is why you saw the leadership in the House. You saw Johnson, the Speaker, Scalise, the Majority Leader, and Stefanik, the conference chair. You saw them all vote to keep George Santos in Congress because they know that seat is probably lost if he's not there. Tom Suozzi has been recruited by Governor Hochul and the Democrats in New York. Clear he would win that seat, certainly in a special election whenever she calls that, or presumed that he would. A lot can happen always and does, but that's the lean anyway. So they know how important that is. And with their majority as slim as it is and getting slimmer, it becomes very problematic for the leadership. It really was a bit broad gambit by them to try and do that, because had Santos remained, they would have had to answer, and the party would have had to answer in their districts to the keeping of George Santos in Congress, which is really not something that the general public thinks should happen, or the people to pay close enough attention anyway.
So what happens now in House and Senate numbers and with the next election? Like, where are we moving in terms of who controls which House?
I mean, the Democrats are in a tough spot in the Senate. They have to defend a lot of seats in order to keep their majority, which is a slim majority to begin with.
And just not to interrupt, but the reason they have to defend so many seats is?
Well, just the cycles and the states that are up right now. I mean, there are always 33 or 34 seats up, and the seats that are up right now are seats that just are in states that tend to be red, that tend to be strong for Republican candidates, or at least not as strong for Democrats. You look at John Tester in Montana as one, and that they're trying to pick off. Ohio, which is now, I would say, a red state nationally. Sherrod Brown has to defend his seat there. In Nevada, you've got Jackie Rosen defending a seat. I mean, these are, red and purple states, but I would say they're mostly red. Nevada, I would say, is probably blue with some red tendencies. And then you say, well, where do the Democrats go? Well, they're going to have to either beat Rick Scott in Florida or Ted Cruz in Texas. Those are their most likely, and those are highly unlikely to turn right now. So that's the Senate. So the Democrats are spending a lot of money and a lot of time on the House and dismantling the leadership in the House and the control of the House. And they probably have a good shot at taking control of the House. A lot of the seats in New York and California that flipped last time are seats in Biden districts, and there are seats scattered throughout the country, not to mention Alabama and in Louisiana. There are going to be seats added, black district seats added there. We'll see what happens in Georgia. So in Georgia, they are going to add in. We're going to see what happens in North Carolina, whether that will help the Republicans or Democrats. But the House is much more in play for Democrats, and the Senate is something they're going to have to fight like hell to defend, which is why for Democrats, electing or re-electing a Democratic president is so important in terms of keeping control, because the vice president could be the 51st vote.
And to that end, how I know this far out, assessing polls is problematic and not dependable. Is Biden as underwater as clearly is being represented?
I mean, who am I to say no? But I think that there are a lot of factors that have to go into play. And I've said it here before quite a bit, which is the money. Democrats have not spent money on the presidential race. None. I mean, they've spent very little. They're sitting on $1 billion, and $1 billion goes into messaging. It goes into reminding people in states that are important what the president has done, what the administration has done, how things are better on paper, even if you're not feeling it. But there will be examples of why you should be feeling it, and reminders of, oh yeah, you are feeling it. You're just not realizing where and how. I'm not saying this as a Democratic, spin guy, but they're going to do it because that's what the political parties do. The Republicans do the same thing. And so that has not been defined yet because the money hasn't been spent. But, the parts of Joe Biden's record and persona that are being talked about right now, his age and the fact that gas prices still remain higher than people want, even though that has nothing to do with the president, that matters. That matters to voters, and matters to voters I'm seeing out in the country.
I was just checking the chat to see if there's anything I needed to address, but the thing that I did want to ask you about in relation to what you're speaking of Biden and what he's blamed for, et cetera, as you suggested, there's no real correlation between any policy and the price of gas, and the price of gas has gone down. Of course, he's not getting credit for that. He was tagged by the GOP and by many for being responsible for the higher gas prices. Anyway, as we said, he's nothing to do with that.
You shouldn't get credit for the lower gas prices or blame.
Exactly. The Middle East, as the Middle East becomes unspooled, and as the Middle East becomes this quagmire that raises all of these issues about history and about support, it's all ugly. And I wonder to what extent Biden is politically encumbered. Let's put aside the humanitarian horror that is going on and that has gone on and has historically gone on. But let's just talk about the situation now in the Middle East as a political element and how it weighs Biden down. And does it, and how would it, and how might that evolve?
Okay, so the questions, I mean, you have to look at the politics of it all as foreign aid, not just the Middle East. I think Ukraine has to come under that umbrella too. And there is a sense among many Republicans and possibly, and this is to the president's detriment, many independents, that we're spending too much money overseas, that we can't fix homelessness, that we are having infrastructure problems, even still with the infrastructure bill, that there is, public education is a disaster, Veterans Affairs and the VA after service, the hospitals, the medical there is not good. Now, again, these are not all things that would be solved in a moment, and it's not like you send $1 to Ukraine, you're taking it out of money for public education, but it's perception in an election year. And I think that's where it could help the president or hurt the president most, is how much money is being spent. Where you stand on these issues and where you stand on Ukraine or Israel or Palestine, that really isn't going to affect the race as much, I don't believe, as how much money is being spent over there. And there are many people that think that we should keep spending as much or more in both places. But it's going to become difficult for Democrats to see a lot of money going to Israel without conditions being placed on it. And that's why you see a group of U.S. senators on the Democratic side coming together to try and control that, to say that there has to be conditional money for Israel, not just this blank check that has gone there for such a long time, where they're able to say, look, in order for you to get this money, and I'm making this up, but this would be an example, you have to make sure that you're going in and providing medical service to Gaza, right? I mean, that has not been talked about. I'm just saying those are the types of things where you attach conditions. Like, your dad says he gives you your allowance, but you have to take out the garbage, right? It's the same type of thing. And I think that sentiment among Democrats is a telltale sign that they are wary of how their sort of blind support for Israel in light of what's going on in Gaza, right or wrong, justified or not, is taking a toll politically.
It's interesting, too, that you find on the GOP side, of course, you find support for Israel. I think the other new component, if I can maybe small end on new, is the immense support for some Palestinian state or some change in Middle East politics on the part of the younger demographic across college campuses, et cetera. I'm wondering how, just in the final moments here, I'm wondering how that might impact the election. I mean, if you look at alternative candidates like an RFK Jr. who does appeal to some of those younger demographics, he's a big supporter of Israel, and he, draws on a lot of history when he makes that case. So it's hard for me to do that calculus. Can you help me with that? Is that younger demographic now being lost by the Democrats?
It's hard to gauge. I mean, young voters don't vote in big numbers, so the amount of time you spend on them. But in a slim election, an election that will be decided by small numbers, most likely, if recent history is going to dictate, every voter matters. Every voter matters all the time. But if you can get groups of voters and you see that they are disenchanted with what's going on in Israel, which again, I just talked about these Democratic senators, this is a way to soften it for them. And they know and they hear and they feel like young Democratic voters who were so instrumental to their victory last time, they need them again this time. And, you know, a lot of it is going to be helped for Democrats by the Dobbs decision, by we still see that choice and life are a big issue among young voters. And that is going to be something we talked about, the money Democrats haven't yet spent. That's going to be a big part of the messaging as well. But to answer your question, you asked me to be brief, and it's too late for that. But the whole idea here that they're going to have this kind of, you know, they're going to use Israel as a wedge issue. It's too tough. Republicans give so much support. They give it because evangelical Christians are so backing Israel right now that I sort of see there's no place for that disenchanted Israel or Mideast voter to go. And so they will probably default, if they are Democrats, they'll probably default to their party anyway.
Wow. Great. Well done. Hey, Michael Shure, I won't see you before the end of the year.
Is that right?
We're going away on a cruise. I'm being held hostage on a cruise.
Was this the Mark Thompson show cruise that I wasn't invited on?
I wish. I would be reluctant to even take that cruise. But
where are you? I don't know if you know, because there's security issues, but where are you visiting?
Central and South America.
Very nice.
And you've never heard me say I really want to visit Central and South America on a cruise, because I don't really want to visit Central and South America on a cruise. But I felt to keep my, you know, de facto marriage together, it was probably the right thing to do. We haven't taken a trip in a long time, to be fair to her, out of the country.
Well, Kim and I will hold down the fort, I would imagine.
Yes, we will.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Kim is a huge fan of yours. And
we have. Is there a this? We might as well talk office politics with everybody else. Do we have? Is there a time off for the Mark Thompson show? Will there be any time?
I don't. You mean for Kim or for what do you or
there's
for you?
No,
just in general, would there be a day that there is not production, or do we work straight through till the new year?
Well, I'm sorry, Kim. Go ahead. I think we're dark on Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah, we had Thanksgiving off, so that was nice. And then, but we had to be back on Friday because Mark's like, we're doing it. And then, and then we had we have Christmas off and we have New Year's Day off.
Okay.
So, but the rest of the time we're here. We're going to be here for you. So
yeah. We Kim, how are you? We feel as though we've asked for a commitment from listeners and from supporters and Patreon and PayPal, and we want to show that we have a a commensurate commitment. So that's all, and a commensurate ding word. Michael, you are truly though a great asset.
Yes.
And what you guys may not know, most of you, is that Michael has been a great voice and a great political analyst during my podcast years. When I had a podcast, he was always there. And for that, I think you showed up in person a lot of the time, which is really cool. And now
I drove up the hill to
the studio. Yeah. Really cool that you continue to, be a voice here, and we so appreciate you. Yeah. Michael Shure. Thanks, Michael. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.